Q&A. I know that you all are familiar with Lisa Bellini and Merrill Cohn. Lisa is the Senior Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, and Merrill is Associate Dean for Faculty Development. And they have done an incredible job in trying to make the morass of what's available, the resources, accessible to faculty. And we like to have them come each year because usually there are wonderful updates to be added. So Lisa and Merrill, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. It's always great to visit the Focus contingent. It's one of my favorite groups on campus. We appreciate all the work that you and Corey and Sue and your whole team does to support women and particularly their leadership aspirations. So thank you. Meryl and I did one of these recently, and it worked very well because it really was a conversation. So we don't have slides. We want your questions, and I will tell you that we use the information that we get from these sorts of sessions to really help inform the kind of programming we do, what we put resources into. This kind of feedback is particularly important from a policy perspective as we think about policy at the level of the school. So I always learn a great deal. I probably learn more from you than you honestly learn from me when we have these discussions. And if you ask a particular question and I can't answer, I'll be very honest about the fact that I can't answer it. But I do think these conversations are critically important. So with that, as an introduction, particularly related to policies that I think you should be aware of and know about related to kind of this dimension. One of the most important accomplishments of this past year is the support for lactation for ambulatory providers. And I think you should at least all be aware of this and be able to make sure that if you see people or have colleagues or you yourself might be planning a maternity leave and then would like to breastfeed when you come back from maternity leave, that we now have, after a year of pretty intense work, a formal policy. At least for Penn, I know that on the CHOP side, they are actively looking at how they can implement something very similar on the CHOP side. But essentially what it does is give some schedule relief in terms of a freeze, or what we call a lactation hold on your schedule for each half day of clinic that you have. And it's good for up to a year after the birth of your child. And if you are planning on using this lactation hold, you need to make that known before you go out on maternity leave so the appropriate arrangements can be made and there's no confusion when you come back regarding what your schedule template looks like. There is no productivity impact in terms of any meaning of seeing fewer patients on your incentive. And that was a very important part of moving this forward. So this was what I would consider to be a rather watershed policy that I worked on for a long time with Debbie Driscoll, who, as you know, is the Senior Executive Director of CPUP, at least on the Penn side. And we're really proud of it. And it's an important recognition of early parenting and how important it is if you do desire to breastfeed, that you have the ability to do that and that we can accommodate your clinical schedules for doing that. So that, I will say, was a wonderful example of school level governance, because that gap was identified by a woman in one of the departments who brought it forward to the Medical Faculty Senate Executive Committee, who subsequently talked about it, talked to me about it. I mean, Corey and I are always looking for policies and procedures that actually support women. So this was something that was kind of on the radar already and not, but not completely developed. And it was this push from the faculty at large that really galvanized this and got the momentum that was necessary to move it forward. So goes back to my opening line with, it's really important that we hear from you and what's important to you and how we can best help support you here as a faculty member at Penn, particularly for junior people. And it's just a great example of how all of that came together. I will say, and I'll flip it over to Meryl in a second. Meryl and Stephanie Thompson in my office have spent an incredible amount of time inventorying the faculty development opportunities that we have, where to focus our energies and our efforts. And she can speak a little bit to that, but it's really important that we're giving you what you want from a professional development perspective. And if we're not doing that, then we need to know that so we can alter what we're doing. Faculty development is obviously critically important, particularly in the first few years. And I can come back around and certainly talk about some flexible promotion timelines and things like that. But again, most interested in your specific questions. So please feel free to put them in the chat while Meryl talks a little bit about what's going on in faculty development and how we're approaching that currently.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I just want to be brief because I really think we're here to answer any questions that you all have for us. But a couple things we've been doing, some initiatives we've taken in the last year. We've done a number of focus groups from various levels of promotion. So at the assistant level, associate and full level, and all the different tracks, academic tracks here at Penn. And really just Stephanie and I have done these trying to get a sense of what faculty development opportunities you all want. So we're collating that information right now. And then we'll be presenting that to Lisa at the executive level, and then coming up with some strategies of opportunities for you. Other things we've done over the last year, many of you may or may not know that we have a series of podcasts called Thriving at PSOM, Perelman School of Medicine, obviously, but there are 10 episodes in season 1 that are all about the promotion process here at Penn for AC, CE, and tenure. There's episodes about how to put together your CV, how to put together a personal statement, the extension procedures here if you need an extension for your promotion, education opportunities and what we're looking for in your education portfolio. So that's season 1. And then season 2 has been all about sort of successful strategies as a faculty member here. So we've done one on how to present your science to the public, one on how you should present yourself, or how people use social media to promote their research. Jodie Foster, who's the Associate Dean for the Assistant Dean for Professionalism, did one on how to deal with difficult people. It's actually our most popular podcast. Lisa did one on, what strategies for success you need in the first couple of years when you come on staff here, which was super helpful. And we have some upcoming ones coming up. One is on multi-generational learning. And one is on scholarly productivity, how to be a good writer. So these are available to you on Apple and Spotify, really easy to access. And I encourage you to listen to them, whenever you have an opportunity. And so those are sort of 20 to 30 minute opportunities for you to get some learning opportunities here at Penn. really what we would like to do here is answer any questions you have. I see that there's one in the chat. In thinking about early faculty development, can you please shed light on improving maternity leave policies at PSOM? I'm excited to meet with the Medical Faculty Senate next month regarding this. Lactation policies are an amazing improvement. Love to extend the maternity leave beyond 4 weeks. Lisa, do you want to take that one?
I knew you were going to give that one to me. I'm actually looking at the moment for the current leave of absence policy, and I'll pop it in the chat when we have it, when I can find it. So expanding, as many of you know, the paid parental leave offered by the university is currently a 4-week benefit for anybody, men or women, not just the person who is having the child. We have done a lot of work around yes, and the answer is we're always looking for suggestions on how to improve life as a faculty member at Penn. We've done a lot of work with the leave of absence policies, working very closely with CPUP. Again, this applies obviously to non-CHOP individuals, but I think CHOP has also done an excellent job at really trying to improve from a policy perspective how we handle leaves in general. I will tell you from my vantage point, leaves have become increasingly requested for non-childcare related responsibilities, non-maternity related responsibilities, particularly as they relate to elder care and care of other family members that I think really ballooned during the pandemic that has continued to persist. So we've tried to capture that in a more global leave of absence policy, being very explicit about how different types of leave would impact people's clinical productivity targets, and then subsequently what impact it would have ultimately on their incentives. Because it's really important that it's clear and that the departments understand what the rules are and that the faculty members understand what happens in the setting of these various types of leave. So I'm going to let Meryl take this next question, and I'm going to find the policy to put in the chat.
So the next question is, are there resources for faculty for women on research track, similar to what GWIMS does? Are we affiliated with them? Do we have data on how women fare on that track in terms of grant submissions and publications? So we did a number of focus groups with the research track this past year, and there's definitely room for improvement in communication on that track. So a couple things that we've done is we formed a faculty group so that all faculty on research track can communicate with each other, because I think people on research track often feel isolated from each other and may not know about each other. And the second thing we did was we met with a number of senior research track faculty who are at the full professor level, and they have graciously volunteered to act as mentors to more junior people on the research track, and we're putting those groups together so that there'll be small mentoring groups with a senior faculty member. This is not going to be your primary mentor, but someone who really is going to be there to help you negotiate the research track. And we're putting together.
Yeah, this is Dr. Vita. I am just calling to see if you guys have any Duera in stock.
Sorry, can you mute?
Ooh, sorry.
That's okay. We're putting together a couple of podcasts directed towards the research faculty as well. As far as tracking their grants, submissions, and publications, that is something we certainly can consider doing, but we have not done that thus far.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Do you want to say something, Meryl, about the Anatee Meadows Society and how it's
Sure.
kind of refreshed and the resources that it presents?
Sure. So the Anatee Meadows Society was a society that was started right before the pandemic to develop a community amongst clinical educator track faculty. And during the pandemic, obviously, a lot of things got put on hold. And most recently, it's really reemerged as a real community resource for CE track faculty. Monisha Kumar is sort of leading the effort there. There is a steering committee. You guys have gotten probably a series of emails about the community that they're developing and subcommittees that are forming around mentoring, around sort of negotiations, networking, and things like that. And they are having launching a opening ceremony. I think it's next week, right, Lisa?
It's within the next couple weeks, yeah.
I think it's I have to find the date, but it's in the next couple weeks. I can assure you, you've gotten emails about it. And John Epstein will be there sort of at the opening, and he's been very supportive as well. And they're a very motivated group, and we're looking for a lot of people to get involved in it. And it's really sort of meant to be a community resource for CE faculty. The Richard Society is a society for the tenure faculty in a similar vein.
Excellent. Okay, so maybe while we're waiting for more questions to come in, I can make a couple of comments about some evolving changes with respect to promotion.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've worked hard on over the last, I would say, 2+ years with the other health schools in the university, 3 of the 4 health schools use the academic clinician track and have that track. We are obviously the largest. And then all 4 health schools have a clinician educator track. We know from our own internal data that from a clinician educator perspective, people are more successful on the track if they have prior experience with a mentored research project or formal research training. And they're more successful if they have actually published something related to original scholarship before they actually are appointed on the track. It's significantly more likely that you will be promoted with those 2 things. And so we have actually for several years now introduced criteria for appointments on the clinician educator track that reflects that observation, strongly encouraging the departments to have discussions with potential faculty members on which track is right for them. And if they don't have the necessary experience, either writing or publishing or engaging in research in any way, shape, or form, to have a careful discussion on which track is the best track for them and the most likely to be successful. A lot of what Meryl is talking about with Anatee Meadows and the early development of CE faculty members, we are assuming that people have been put on the right track and that are in the right place. And that's pretty important. And so those honest and open discussions with mentors, with department chairs and division chiefs when junior faculty are accepting a job is critically important. So we have revised those guidelines to include the fact that it's important that junior in the first 3 years faculty on the clinician educator track have the necessary protected time to actually be able to use resources they might have been provided, but also develop their collaborative research network and start to publish, learn to write, etc. Because one of the primary criteria for clinician educators in promotion, and Meryl also sits on co-op, so if there are specific co-op questions for any of the tracks, you should feel free to ask her those as well. but the expectation is that individuals will have sustained peer-reviewed scholarship. So that is an important representation of how both the School of Medicine Co-op, the Committee on Appointments and Promotions, and the AC Clinical Committee, the Academic Clinician Clinical Committee, which is the group that reviews all of the clinical appointments and promotions, as well as the academic clinician appointment promotions, have moved to an impact and trajectory framework. And that's really important because our school, every 2 candidates is different. There's no 2 candidates that go up for promotion that are the same. And that's one of the great things about being here. You get to decide as the faculty candidate how you want to describe yourself, what your niche is, and each case gets an independent, holistic review of all the contents of the dossier, and it's evaluated on its individual merits. And that's very important for people to understand, because we constantly get asked for what is the formula for success. There really is no formula A plus B equals C. It's all of these different pieces and presenting them appropriately, and then being evaluated by a group of your peers by the appropriate committee, depending on what track you're in. So how you think about impact for your particular field or discipline or specialty becomes really important when you're putting together your case for promotion. How are you going to demonstrate that impact? And trajectory has now become important. So I mentioned before, the promotion criteria for clinician educators is sustained peer-reviewed scholarship. Some years, I actually admitted this the last time I did one of these calls. You can see from my CV when I had my children, because I have absolutely no scholarly productivity whatsoever. And then it kind of picks up a little bit, and then I have another one and it falls off again, and then it picks up a little bit. So the goal here is trajectory over time, not trajectory for any given year. And if your trajectory is positive over time, and you're developing an impact in your area of expertise, it is highly, highly likely that you are going to be promoted at this institution. I don't use absolute words because people hold me to those words, but it is really, really highly likely that will be the case. I think part of what people see sometimes is this other person next to you or down the hall who's speaking every week or has 100 publications or all these other things, and that individual may feel like they're not doing enough in order to meet the criteria. But a steady, positive trajectory over time with the demonstration of impact is what you need. And you can define that as you create your personal statement, as you put together your dossier, you work with your chair on your promotions package, and that's how it goes through. We used to have, and this is relatively new, we used to be very concerned about people whose trajectory was steep. And so maybe they were here 3 years or 4 years, and their trajectory was so steep that they wanted to be promoted, quote unquote, early. And what we're trying to do is really take the word early out of the vocabulary at this point. And this is something that the 4 health schools in the university have agreed to do. If we're really going to focus on trajectory, it really doesn't matter when you pass that bar. Maybe it's year 5, maybe it's year 6, you're in a mandatory probationary period like CE, you have until year 9 to do it. And if it didn't happen early or it happened in year 9, it really shouldn't matter. It happened. And so we need to, I think, be a little bit more inclusive about the rate at which people's careers progress, about the slope of that trajectory and the impact individuals are having, because that combination of things is very different for different people with different personal situations. So I've said a lot, about 6 minutes worth of stuff. So I'm happy to let people kind of digest that and feel free to ask questions. And again, Meryl sits on co-op and has for many years and is happy to take any of those direct questions as well.
Yeah, I would also just, as people are thinking about their questions, add that, people think of co-op as sort of a group of us, sort of judging everybody and throwing people out left and right. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth. We spend most of our time in a very joyous way celebrating the work and the impact that faculty have here. It's exquisitely unusual for us to be thinking that somebody has not made the bar. Almost always people not only have made the bar, but greatly overstep the bar for promotion here. And that we're advocating in a very positive way. And one of the joys of being on co-op, because we're all in our own silos, is being able to see the work that's being done in all other aspects of PSOM. So people are very concerned about the promotion process, and totally understandable. But most of you, as you're going through this process, are extremely accomplished, have good mentoring, and are really not going to have any problem with your promotion process. Of course, as Lisa said, we can't guarantee that, but it is exceedingly unusual for that not to be the case. Somebody asked, any ideas on how to improve the situation where academics are only really successful at asking for resources when they have competing job offers? We have to be ready to leave Penn, especially relevant nearing promotion. I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you saying, whoever asked it, do you want to clarify? Sorry.
Sure. So it's widely known that if we want unrestricted funds, if we want space, if we want resources, right, the way you get those is by going out on the job market, getting a competing job offer, and then asking Penn to compete with that job offer in order to stay. So that's just widely known to be the case. I don't think I'm speaking just for myself. That's not great. That's very disenchanting.
And you're in
that's
the
very
the tenure track. What
Yes.
track are you in?
Yes, tenure track.
Okay. Meryl, do you have thoughts on that answer?
I mean, I think that that's true in many institutions, and it is definitely dependent on your department. So it's very hard on a global level to answer that question. You're right that it's unfortunate that that's a method by which you have to get your resources, and some of that is really in the control of your department chair, not sort of at our level. I don't know, Lisa, if you have anything you want to add.
No, I think it's a bit different for people in the tenure track than non-tenure track, because the space and resource constraints are significantly different than for those in other tracks. And so I have heard this. I wouldn't say that it's dogma, or it may be widely perceived. I don't necessarily think that translates into it's factual. I think there are some high profile examples of this that kind of feed the perception that this is the way it has to be. When I'm asked this question, I usually respond, if you're not really interested in leaving and in looking for a new opportunity, doing it just for the sake of being able to get an offer that you then use to increase your sort of currency or value here at Penn, it's just not something I would recommend. I think you really need to be interested in growing and developing and have an opportunity that you're excited about somewhere else. I've never really ascribed to the philosophy of just go on the job hunt and look for a job every 5 or 6 years, get an offer so you can increase your position. I think there are other ways that you can demonstrate value, particularly because we are such a collaborative institution. Ways as you grow your research program, your collaborative connections, how you're advancing resources in your program is not only going to enhance yours but others. How the sum of the parts, the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts. And so I think this ends up being pretty personality driven, quite honestly, and within certain departments there might be more of this than others. I'm happy to have a more individualized conversation about this. I think it's hard to give broad sweeping advice, but in general, I don't recommend people just look for jobs for the sake of looking so they can change their position at Penn.
Yeah, sometimes that backfires, I would say. And, if you really are happy, in general want to stay here, and then you get a job offer, there's the risk that your department chair will say, you should go. So anytime you're looking at a job, I think elsewhere, you have to think about whether you would really be willing to take it, because that may be the result that occurs. So I would just add that. Any other questions from the group?
We've got a pretty diverse group here, so what's on people's minds?
Yeah.
And honestly, if people are more comfortable, we could stop recording. We don't necessarily have to record the rest of this. So
I think we should stop recording.